Hello, and welcome to the Louise Elizabeth podcast, formerly known as the Happy Lifestyles podcast. Head over to episode 35 if you would love to learn more about the rebrand. This space is a space for me to talk about anything relating to holistic health living, mind, body, lifestyle, spirit, business, and so much more. In my opinion, health is a whole lifestyle, not just one thing that we work on. I will be getting transparent with you, sharing information that I have learned that has supported me and things that I'm currently learning and working on myself. Living a happy and holistic life has changed my world, and I hope to inspire you to do the same or give you the tools and resources that you can take away into your own life. I am a 620-hour registered yoga teacher. I am a registered holistic nutritionist and a professional network marketer in the wellness industry. Thank you for being here. Let's get started with today's episode. Hello, lovely humans. So before I get started with today's episode, I do have a huge favor to ask. If you are one of my lovely listeners, I can see those of you who are listening. I appreciate and love it so much. If you could take a moment of your time to please go on Instagram, you can even find the newest post on the specific episode, tag I am Louise Elizabeth, share a takeaway of this podcast if you're gaining value, and please help me spread the word of my podcast to the world because I would be so grateful. And yeah, that's it. I'd be so grateful. Okay, so today I actually did a post on this, I want to say a couple weeks ago now, and then I added it to the list of podcast episodes I like to talk about. And the reason I wanted to talk about this in a podcast episode is because I had so much engagement and messages behind the scene from this post, and so I think a lot of people really resonate with this, and I wanted to talk about the negative vortex. And I want to start talking about it in a sense of the neurological pathway, non-fluffy version of it. So the thing about your brain is you have neurological pathways, right? So it's just the way you think, the way you react in every single situation is always the same. It's just the way you're programmed, right? So the thing is recently in the sense of not recently, but recently in the sense of how long science has been around and studies have been happening. Recently it's been a lot of studies around neuroscience and the fact that you can change your brain, you can change the way you think, you can teach your brain to rewire in different ways, like people that, for example, lose a finger and then say they lose their pinky finger because pinky fingers and your ring fingers, those neurons, those pathways fire up together. They'll lose a pinky finger, but then they lose the ability to use their ring finger because those neuron pathways have been firing together. And so they actually had to rewire their brain and retrain their brain to be able to use their ring finger again. So the reason I want to share that is because if you're, if we're going to talk about the negative vortex, and if you're someone that maybe you're stuck in a vortex right now and it feels really powerful and overwhelming and feels heavy, or it feels disastrous, or you just feel like you don't even know which way to look, you can't even look anywhere because the storm around you just feels like it's raging, I just want to say that it is possible to come out of that vortex. It is possible to. And if you're new to this field of taking advantage of your brain, of neuroplasticity, of paying attention to your thoughts, or you're trying to change patterns, if it's new to you, the more you do it, the more you practice, the more you start paying attention, the more you come out of those vortexes, I don't want to say the easier it gets with time, because it still is just always when you're in one of those vortexes, I know how heavy they feel, but as you do it more and more and practice more and more, that brain muscle, that awareness, that ability to come out of there, it does get easier, for lack of a better description, as time goes on, and you just get better at it, and there's so many things to it. It's just the awareness that you're in a vortex, because sometimes we don't even realize we're being negative Nancy's, right? Till a friend is just like, you know what, Louise, you've been really negative lately, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, I have been really negative lately, I'm so sorry. Or we don't really realize that our mood is down, or we're kind of sad, and we're just kind of walking around and not really paying attention, and our shoulders are slumped forward, and we're just kind of like, and then, you look at a picture of yourself and you're like, man, I look sad. Or you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, my eyes just are downturned, my mouth is permanently downturned, like, wow, what's going on? Whereas when you build that muscle and that brain muscle, that pathway, build a pathway of awareness and paying attention and really knowing what's going on in your own head, because most people, without even realizing it, we're off thinking. Like, if we let our brains just go free, they'll go free, and they won't always, most of the time, go free in a place that actually serves us and is useful. And so that pathway of just the practice of being aware of your own thoughts and what your thoughts are, and what's consuming you. I mean, most humans, I think the average is like 60 or 66,000 thoughts a day. And it's like, most of those thoughts, I don't know the exact percentage off the top of my head, but most of those thoughts are the same thoughts day in, day out, and we just don't realize it. So what we're thinking about today, you were most likely thinking about yesterday. What you were thinking about yesterday, you're most likely thinking about 2 days ago. What you're thinking about today, you're most likely going to think about tomorrow. So it takes practice to really pay attention to your thoughts, and not even just pay attention to your thoughts, but to notice when your thoughts aren't serving you. And it takes practice to notice when you're in a vortex. We not all of us just have that ability to be like, whoa, wait a minute, whoa, wait a minute, whoa, wait a minute. So I do just want to pre-frame that if you are in a vortex right now, or you feel like you've been in a vortex for months and years, like, it is possible to come out of there. 2 things on that. One, you actually have to take action. You actually have to do things to support building new neurological pathways, to support awareness around your thoughts that aren't serving your purpose. And you really do have to actually do the do. And the second thing, actually 3 things. The second thing is, it won't always be easy. It won't always be simple. Like, in theory, it's simple. In reality, it's not easy. And it will take time. Like, you're going to have bad days. You're going to have good days on that path of coming out of the vortex. But it is possible to come out of that vortex. And the third thing, which influences the second thing, is you have to make the decision, and you truly have to decide that you want to come out of there. And you might be listening to this and be like, well, who wouldn't want to come out of a negative vortex? A lot of people. A lot of people. And the reason is because it's comfortable. The ego tells you that is a familiar place for you. Humans are habitual. We are habitual creatures, right? Most of us get up and do the same thing every single morning. And when we don't have the same thing to do every single morning, we don't have our routine, we feel lost, we feel confused, we feel overwhelmed, we feel like life is, a mess. Even if you chose, being on vacation, whatever it is. Like, a lot of people go on vacation and come home and they're so excited about their routine to come back. So you have to make the decision, and you have to truly want to come out of there. And if you don't truly want to come out of there, and again, saying that and listening to that, you might just be like, well, Louise, really, who wouldn't want to come out of there? And I agree, who wouldn't want to come out of feeling sad? But it is still a decision. You still have to make that decision, and the reason, it might not be so that they don't want to come out of it, but their ego doesn't want them to come out of it, and their ego is going to convince them that it's safer and more comfortable in the negative vortex, because when they're in the negative vortex, they're not going to do things that get them hurt. So those 3 things are really important in coming out of the negative vortex. And the reason I like to call it a negative vortex is because that's what it feels like, right? Like, that's really what it feels like. It feels like you're being sucked into a direction. You're being sucked under. You're being sucked into the thought. You're being sucked into the feeling. And it just feels like a hurricane, a tornado, and it's just pulling you, and it's so strong. And to get to the other side, sometimes it feels like the storm's never going to pass. The storm's never going to stop. This is just going to go on forever. And when the vortex does hit, when those thoughts and those feelings and the things that aren't serving you, and the things that feel heavy, the things that feel overwhelming hit, they hit hard, right? It's not just like a casual buildup. It's like, just maybe you have your calm before the storm, or you just have a really great day and you're like, oh, that was good. And then the next day it's just like, boom, right? But it's not just like, oh, it's just getting a little bit windier, it's just getting a little bit windier, it's getting a little bit windier. No, there's a calm, and then there's a storm. And when it hits, it's just like, wow. And it can feel so, you can feel so alone. You can feel so like, what's wrong with me? Like, why do I have to feel this way? Why am I this? Why am I that? La, 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 la. Especially as women, right? We like to get into our heads. The thing is, well, a couple things is, when it comes to a negative vortex, first off, congratulations, you're human. Even if when you're there, it really just impacts you and hits hard, and maybe you've gone through some trauma in your life and your body's still holding on to that trauma and you haven't quite figured out how to release it out of your system yet, then it doesn't feel amazing, I understand, but still congratulations, because you are human. If you're feeling those things and you're feeling a vortex and you're feeling the ups and downs of life and feelings, emotions, thoughts, etc., that is a part of being human. There's no human on earth that's exempt from feeling those feelings and experiencing those things. And so really, truly, congratulations. And if you are feeling the feelings, if you are feeling heavy, if you're feeling the vortex, just it's the personal development world or the manifestation world, and I understand the positive thoughts, and your thoughts create your reality, and you have to think positive and you have to do this and da 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 da. But there is no such thing as only going up, right? We don't just walk up the mountain, we come down the mountain. We don't just look up, and we look down as well, right? And there's no just left, there's also right. There's not just masculine, there's also feminine. Like, it's just called balance, and that's how things go, right? And I without a doubt in my mind, monks in Tibet who we think are just like la 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 la, they have days. They have days where they think thoughts that are maybe negative. They have days where they don't feel worthy. They have days where, their old identity comes back. And the difference between them and maybe someone who doesn't feel like a Tibetan monk is they are so good at recognizing that vortex, at recognizing when it's there, because they spend so much time bringing awareness to their thoughts. They spend so much time paying attention to what's going on in their head. So it's the balance, right? And if you listen to any truly successful person, they're going to tell you, no matter where you're at in success, whether it's like a financial goal, a business goal, a life goal, you will still always experience the thoughts, the negative vortex, the self-limiting beliefs, the old identity that you've released is trying to come back because it doesn't want to be released so easily. And so, or that the ego, and the thing about the ego is, yes, it brings us into these negative states sometimes, but it's there to protect you, right? If in the past you were hurt doing something and a pattern feels familiar, that ego is going to come back and be like, whoa, 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 time out, time out. No, 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 no. I remember how awful this was in the past. Let's not go there again. So it's just a natural part of the process, right? So it makes you human, and it is something to expect to happen. Now, when you can expect it, why I wanted to say that is when the negative vortex happens, and this is something that a lot of personal development people might be like, no, 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 we can't, da, 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 is I was like that too. Like, no, just let it go, just let it go, let the negative feeling go, just let it go, just let it go, just let it go. The thing is, if you don't acknowledge the feeling, if you don't acknowledge the sensation, you can't let it go. One, because the more you ignore it, the more it knocks, the harder it knocks, the harder it knocks. And two, you have to look at that thing in the face so that you can really get real with that negative vortex. Like, look at that vortex. Like, truly, next time when something hits, look at the vortex and be like, all right, you got my intention, vortex. What do you want? Okay? What do you want? You're here to ruin my day? No, I won't let you ruin my day. But you have to look at it. It's different than just being like, no, it's not there. It's not there. You have to look at it, acknowledge it, and then decide what you're going to do about it. You take the power back when you look at the vortex and you decide how that vortex is going to influence you. And sometimes you look at the vortex, and maybe it's a vortex of someone's past in your life or something, an animal's past, and you need to look at that vortex and be like, you know what? I'm going to feel into this. I'm going to cry, and I'm just going to be upset for a minute, and then I'm going to be able to move past or move forward, So sometimes in those negative vortexes, you need to feel the feelings. Of course, depending on what they are, you need to feel them or look at them or acknowledge them. Again, all depending on what they are. And then you need to start asking the truth behind them. So if it's a feeling, maybe you've lost someone and you want to feel sad, that's a little bit different than, is this real? But if it's a feeling of unworthy, or you're not capable, or your ego saying, no, you can't do that, look at it and say, why? Why can't I do that? Oh, because of X, Y, and Z. And when you have these conversations, if you can, if you're by yourself, have them out loud. Look in the mirror and pretend that the person you're looking at in the mirror is your ego. Why are you here? What do you want? That's not true. Is it true? Why is that true? And say the answers to yourself out loud too. Because when you say them out loud, you're going to be like, man, I sound ridiculous. I truly sound ridiculous. Why am I feeling this way? Well, because this happened in the past. Yeah, but why am I feeling this way right now? Well, because this happened in the past. Yeah, but that happened in the past, so why am I feeling this way right now? Nothing's even happened yet. Yeah, but no, yeah, buts. We all know yeah, buts are ridiculous. I hate yeah, buts. And really have that conversation with yourself. Have that conversation. Ask why it's there. Ask what's its purpose. And recognize when it's just a load of baloney. And I know that's easier said than done, and it does take practice. I'm not going to pretend like I just walked out of the womb with this ability to look at all my fears and my ego and be like, you know what do you want? Like, really, what do you want, ego? Oh, right, you want to remind me of this mistake I made in the past? Well, no, you know what? F you. Because that's kind of mean. I am aware that I made that and I failed, but from that, I've learned X, Y, and Z. And it might sound silly to like talk to yourself, but it really does help. And for me, when I'm talking to myself, what I find really useful is particularly diving into questions, like asking questions and asking open-ended questions, and then having the answers come to you just hits a little bit differently than making a statement, right? That's why some teachers, they don't give you the answer, they ask you questions so that you can have an answer, because it hits differently when you come up with the answer. And another way to really support the negative vortex, and I know I've talked about this time and time and time again, and I'll talk about it time and time and time and time again, is have some sort of mindfulness practice. So mindfulness is paying attention. It's not just meditation. It's paying attention to your breath, paying attention to your body, paying attention to your thoughts. You can do that through meditation. You can do that through closing your eyes, breathing, obviously doing that through breathing. And journaling is a really great thing. And I remember when I first started journaling, I was like, this is so dumb. Like, what am I even writing? Like, especially when I was answering questions. And then a lot of times you need to write out. So maybe you don't want to sit in a window and look at yourself. Excuse me. I had to burp and I was just like holding on to it. You sit in a window and you look at yourself and talking to yourself, you're like, I just can't quite do this. Then write it out. Write it out and then reread it back. Reread the fears. And see where there's truth and see where there isn't truth. And above all else, you have to trust deep down that you know what is truth and what isn't truth. And if you're not particularly warm to understanding your own truth, if you're not particularly warm to really leaning into your truth, then give it some time, and it will come with time. It will come with practice. But really, truly, when you can lean into that and know that you know at your core the truth, even if you've been super disconnected with it, it really makes all the difference in the world. So if you're in a negative vortex, really take some time for some mindfulness. Maybe take some time to lean into those feelings, feel them in your body, stop trying to fight them, let your body just experience what it wants to experience, scream, cry, throw a fit, like really let those emotions pass through you. Don't just sit and simmer in the emotions, but let it pass through some sort of action or noise, or crying is also a way to let it pass through. And then journal, have a conversation with yourself, do some breathing, do something that involves being present. Look around you, go outside and look at things, and as silly as it might sound, that building is gray, that window is blue, this car is green. Like really, like look at things and label what you see, because again, that might sound ridiculous, but that brings you into the present moment. And a lot of times when we get sucked into the vortex, and maybe we call it anxiety, is we're just stuck in the past, or we're too lost on the future. And of course, looking to the future and setting goals is really useful, but if we're just in the future and we're not in the present moment, that doesn't serve us. If we're constantly looking over our shoulder, we're not going to be able to move forward. So I hope today's episode was useful for you. Again, please, I'm asking for your help to help me spread the word. If you enjoy my podcast and what I have to talk about, I'd be so grateful if you could take a moment of your time to tag the episode on social media. I'm Louise Elizabeth, and yeah, I'd be so grateful. Okay, I hope this episode served your purpose.